Now let me tell you something. See, when a man hurts you, the first thing you want to do is cry, argue, send long messages, call your friends, and try to figure out what you did wrong. But let me help you right now, most of the time. It ain't about what you did. It's about what he thinks he can get away with. When a man hurts you, your first instinct is to react. Your heart starts racing, your emotions take over, and you want to say everything you're feeling right now. You want to text him paragraphs, raise your voice, maybe even remind him of every mistake he's ever made. But let me tell you something, reacting emotionally might feel powerful in the moment, but it usually weakens your position in the long run. There is a big difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is emotional, responding is controlled, and control is powered. When you react, you give him access to your emotional buttons. You show him exactly how to trigger you. Some men don't even realize they're doing it, but once they see that certain behavior gets a big emotional reaction out of you, it becomes a pattern. Not because they're evil, but because human beings repeat what creates impact without consequence. If every time he disappoints you, you explode and then forgive him the next day, he learns that your anger is temporary. He learns he can survive your reaction. But when you respond with strength, everything shifts. Strength is calm. Strength is looking him in the eye and saying, "That hurt me," without yelling. Strength is stepping back instead of chasing. Strength is silence when you could easily argue. Silence is powerful because it forces reflection. When you stop over-explaining and overreacting, he no longer knows exactly where he stands, and uncertainty makes people think. Responding with strength also means taking time before you speak. You don't have to address everything immediately. You can pause. You can breathe. You can gather your thoughts. That pause protects your dignity. It prevents you from saying things you can't take back. It keeps you from acting in a way that doesn't align with who you truly are. A strong woman doesn't allow temporary emotions to control permanent decisions. And let's be clear, strength is not pretending you're not hurt. It's not suppressing your feelings. It's not acting cold just to prove a point. Strength is owning your emotions without letting them own you. You can feel pain and still carry yourself with composure. You can be disappointed and still speak with respect. When you respond instead of react, you show emotional maturity. And emotional maturity commands respect. Here's something else you need to understand. When you react emotionally, the focus shifts from what he did wrong to how you responded. Now, instead of discussing his behavior, you're defending your tone. Instead of him apologizing for hurting you, he's talking about how you overreacted. You lost the message because the delivery got loud. But when you respond calmly, the spotlight stays exactly where it belongs on his actions. A man who sees that you won't lose control over him begins to realize you're not driven by fear of losing him. That's powerful. Because many times emotional reactions come from fear, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of losing love. When you respond with strength, you show that your value doesn't depend on his behavior. You are steady. You are grounded. You are not easily shaken. And let me tell you something real. Men respect strength more than emotion. Not because they don't care about feelings, but because strength signals standards. It tells him that hurting you has weight. It tells him that you are paying attention. It tells him that if the behavior continues, there will be a shift. So the next time he hurts you, don't let your first move be emotional chaos. Let it be composure. Let it be clarity. Let it be controlled. Because a woman who can master her reaction has already mastered the situation. When a man hurts you, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is acting like it didn't matter. Brushing it off. laughing it away, pretending you're cool with it just to avoid conflict. But let me tell you something straight. If you don't make him aware of the consequences of hurting you, he will assume there aren't any. And people repeat what doesn't cost them. Now, I'm not talking about revenge. I'm not talking about drama. I'm talking about consequences with dignity. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional. Consequences are intentional. Revenge says, I'm going to hurt you back. Consequences say, you don't get the same access to me after you hurt me. That's power. See, a lot of women think love means endless forgiveness with no adjustment. No. Love includes accountability. If he disrespects you and nothing changes in how you show up for him, then what lesson did he learn? If he cancels on you repeatedly and you keep rearranging your schedule, what did that teach him? If he speaks to you in a way that makes you feel small and you continue giving him full emotional access, he starts believing that's acceptable behavior. Men pay attention to what changes. If you used to answer his calls on the first ring and now you take your time, he notices. If you used to be overly affectionate and now you've pulled your energy back, he notices. If you stop going out of your way to make things convenient for him, he notices. And when he notices, he starts connecting dots. Something shifted. That shift is the consequence. But here's the key: you don't announce it like a threat. You don't say, if you do this again, I'm going to do that. That sounds like negotiation. Instead, you calmly state how you feel, and then you adjust your behavior accordingly. When you did that, it hurt me, period. Then you observe. If he cares, he will respond with effort. If he doesn't, he will test you again. And let me explain something important. Consequences are not punishments. They are boundaries in action. A boundary without action is just a suggestion. If you say you don't tolerate disrespect, but you tolerate it every time, that's not a boundary, that's a wish. A real boundary requires follow-through, and follow-through requires courage. Sometimes the consequence is emotional distance. Sometimes it's limiting your availability. Sometimes it's stepping back completely, not because you don't love him, but because you love yourself enough to protect your peace. That's the difference. You have to understand that men respect what they can lose. If he feels secure that you'll stay no matter how he behaves, there's no urgency to improve. Comfort can create complacency. But when he senses that his actions directly affect his access to you, he starts thinking differently. Now let's be clear, this only works if you're truly willing to stand on it. If you pull back for 2 days and then rush back because you miss him, the message becomes confusing. Consistency is what makes consequences powerful. You don't have to be harsh, you don't have to be loud. You just have to be firm. When you require accountability, you're not being difficult, you're being mature. You're teaching him how to treat you. And if he steps up, that's growth. If he doesn't, that's information. Either way, you win because you're no longer accepting pain without response. A man who truly values you will adjust when he realizes hurting you changes things. And if he refuses to adjust, then you've learned something even more important. He was comfortable, not committed. Never beg a man for attention, love, or respect. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. Never beg. The moment you start pleading for the bare minimum, you shift the balance of the relationship. Love given freely is beautiful. Love requested respectfully is healthy. But love that has to be begged for, that's imbalance. When a man hurts you, especially through neglect or emotional distance, your instinct might be to chase him down for reassurance. You want clarity. You want comfort. You want him to say, no, baby, I care. So you call more, you text more, you explain more, you try harder. But here's the hard truth. When you overextend yourself to get someone to treat you right, you teach them that your standards are flexible under pressure. Attention is not something you should have to convince someone to give you. If a man values you, he will prioritize you, not perfectly, not every second of the day, but consistently. And consistency doesn't require begging. It requires willingness. If you find yourself constantly asking, "Why don't you call me? Why don't you spend time with me? Why don't you post me?" You're already in a position where you're negotiating for effort. Respect is even more serious. You do not debate respect. You do not beg for it. You do not explain it over and over. If a man crosses a line and you have to repeatedly remind him how to treat you, that's not misunderstanding, that's disregard. And begging in that moment lowers your value in his eyes, not because you're less valuable, but because desperation signals fear of loss. And people rarely respect what is afraid to walk away. Let's talk about love. Love isn't proven by how hard you can hold on. It's proven by how naturally it flows between two people. If you're the only one fighting for connection, that's not romance, that's imbalance. If you're sending long emotional paragraphs while he responds with one word answers, the energy isn't matched. And energy that isn't matched eventually drains you. The strongest move you can make when you feel neglected is to pull your energy back instead of pushing harder. When you stop overgiving, you create space, and space reveals truth. If he notices the shift and steps forward, that tells you something. If he doesn't, that tells you something too. Begging often comes from fear, fear that you're not enough, fear that someone else will replace you, fear of being alone. But let me tell you something clearly. If you have to convince someone to see your worth, they were never looking at you the right way to begin with. Your value does not increase when you argue for it. It remains constant whether someone recognizes it or not. Confidence is quiet. It says, "I deserve better." And then it acts accordingly. It doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It simply adjusts. When you stop begging, you regain control of your dignity. You remind yourself that love is a choice, not a favor someone does for you. A man who truly wants you will not require chasing. He will not need constant reminders to show up. He will not be confused about your importance. And if he is confused, let him be confused without you lowering yourself to clear it up through desperation. You are not asking for too much when you ask for consistency, attention, and respect. You are asking the wrong person when you have to beg for it. Protect your self-worth at all costs. I don't care how long you've been with him. I don't care how much you love him. I don't care how many memories you've built together. The moment you start sacrificing your self-worth just to keep a man, you are losing something far more valuable than the relationship itself. Self-worth is the foundation of how people treat you. It's not what you say about yourself, it's what you tolerate. If you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, broken promises, and emotional neglect, that becomes the standard. Not because you deserve it, but because you accepted it. People don't rise to unspoken expectations, they adjust to visible tolerance. When a man hurts you, especially repeatedly, the real danger isn't just the pain he causes. The real danger is what happens inside you. You start questioning yourself. You start wondering if you're overreacting. You start lowering your expectations just to avoid conflict. And little by little, you shrink. That shrinking is the erosion of self-worth. A woman with strong self-worth doesn't allow behavior that makes her feel small. She doesn't excuse patterns that damage her peace. She doesn't trade her standards for temporary affection. And understand this clearly, protecting your self-worth is not about pride. It's about emotional survival. You cannot build a healthy relationship on a broken sense of self. Sometimes protecting your self-worth means having uncomfortable conversations. It means saying, "That doesn't work for me." It means refusing to laugh at jokes that disrespect you. It means not accepting apologies without change. And yes, sometimes it means walking away from someone you still care about. Here's the part people don't like to hear. Love alone is not enough. You can love someone deeply and still be treated poorly. You can feel chemistry, passion, connection, and still lose yourself trying to keep it. Self-worth reminds you that your emotional safety matters just as much as your feelings. When you protect your self-worth, you move differently. You don't chase clarity from someone who confuses you. You don't beg for reassurance from someone who withholds it. You don't compete for attention with other women. You don't over-explain your boundaries. You simply decide what aligns with your values and what doesn't. And let me tell you something powerful. When you protect your self-worth, you change the energy. A man can feel when a woman knows her value. There's a steadiness in her. She's not easily shaken. She's not desperate for validation. She's not afraid to lose him if losing him means losing herself. That kind of energy commands respect without demanding it. If he hurts you and you ignore your own feelings just to keep peace, you teach him that your pain is negotiable. But when you stand firm and say, "I deserve better than this," even if your voice shakes, you reinforce your own value. Protecting your self-worth also means paying attention to patterns. One mistake can be corrected. A pattern reveals character. If the same issue keeps showing up, don't keep shrinking to accommodate it. Your standards are not the problem. At the end of the day, you can replace a relationship. You can rebuild after heartbreak. But rebuilding your self-worth after repeatedly ignoring it is much harder. Guard it, stand on it, and never let temporary emotions convince you to permanently lower your standards. Watch his actions, not his apologies. I know apologies sound good. I know when he looks you in the eyes and says, "I'm sorry, baby." Your heart wants to believe him. You want to believe that this time it's different. You want to believe he finally understands. But let me tell you something real. An apology without change is manipulation, whether he means it that way or not. Anybody can say sorry. Sorry costs nothing. Change costs effort. Change costs ego. Change requires discipline. So if a man hurts you, and the only thing that shows up afterward is words, you haven't received growth, you've received a speech. Now, I'm not saying people don't make mistakes. Everybody does. A grown man can mess up, but a grown man also corrects what he messed up. That's the difference. When he apologizes, don't just listen with your ears. Watch with your eyes, because behavior tells the truth faster than words ever will. If he says he's sorry for not calling, does he start calling consistently? If he apologizes for disrespecting you, does his tone change? If he admits he hurt you by being distant, does he suddenly become more present? These are the questions that matter, not how emotional the apology sounds, not how many times he says he loves you. What changed? Here's where a lot of women get caught. The apology makes you feel seen for a moment. It gives you relief. You think, okay, he gets it now. So you relax your boundaries. You go back to normal. You give him full access again. But if his behavior returns to the same pattern within days or weeks, that apology was temporary comfort, not permanent correction. Consistency is proof. Anybody can behave well for a week. Anybody can step up for a few days when they feel you pulling away. But sustained change, that shows intention. That shows maturity. That shows he values keeping you more than keeping his bad habits. You have to detach from the emotional high of hearing what you want to hear. Some men are very good with words. They know your love language. They know how to calm you down. They know how to say just enough to reset the situation. But if you keep forgiving based on potential instead of performance, you will stay stuck in cycles. Cycles look like this. He hurts you, he apologizes, things improve briefly, then it happens again. Every time the apology feels sincere. And maybe it is in that moment, but sincerity without discipline is still unstable. Real remorse shows up as adjustment. Watch how quickly he gets defensive. A man who is truly sorry doesn't spend more time explaining why he did it than fixing what he did. If every apology includes excuses, blame, shifting, or turning the situation around on you, that's not accountability, that's avoidance. And let's talk about effort. Change requires effort when nobody is watching, not just when you're upset. Not just when he feels like he's about to lose you. When you're calm, when things are good, when there's no immediate pressure, does the new behavior continue? That's the test. You also have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes you see the red flags, but you ignore them because you love him. You tell yourself he's trying, you tell yourself nobody's perfect, and that's true. Nobody is perfect. But patterns of disrespect, neglect, or dishonesty are not imperfections, they are habits. Love should feel safe more often than it feels stressful. If you're constantly recovering from apologies, that's emotional exhaustion. A man who truly values you will not want to keep apologizing for the same thing. It will bother him that he hurt you. He will adjust because he doesn't want to see that look on your face again. His pride won't matter more than your peace. So don't measure love by how passionate the apology is. Measure it by how permanent the improvement becomes. Because at the end of the day, changed behavior is the loudest apology a man can give. Be willing to walk away if the pattern continues. Now, I know that's the hardest one. It's easy to say, I deserve better. It's easy to post quotes about knowing your worth. But when your heart is involved, when you've invested time, energy, memories, and dreams into a man, walking away feels like tearing a piece of yourself off. Still, let me tell you something that might save you years of pain. If nothing changes, nothing changes. A pattern is not a mistake. A pattern is a decision repeated. If he keeps hurting you in the same way, after the conversations, after the tears, after the apologies, that's no longer confusion. That's consistency. And consistency tells you everything you need to know. You have to stop falling in love with who he could be and start dealing with who he consistently shows you he is. Potential is attractive. It gives you hope. You think, if he would just fix this one thing, we'd be perfect. But relationships are not built on potential. They are built on reality. And if reality keeps leaving you drained, anxious, and doubting yourself, you have to question how much longer you're willing to live like that. Walking away is not about pride, it's about preservation. It's about protecting your mental health, your confidence, your peace. When you stay in a situation that repeatedly hurts you, your nervous system never relaxes. You're always waiting for the next disappointment. You're always analyzing his tone, his messages, his behavior. That's not love. That's survival mode. And here's something powerful: the willingness to walk away changes the entire dynamic. When a man knows you are afraid to lose him,